We're in. So today we're going to do 3 different interview setups that we're going to show you guys, from a basic lighting setup to an intermediate all the way up to a professional.
So that could be starting with just a key light and some real basic lighting setup, all the way up to using something way more complex like a book light and adding lots of other elements in there as well.
Sweet, let's get into it.
Let's go on with it. First things first then is we kind of want to suss out where we want to actually have our interview. We film a lot of stuff in this corner here. We've got this all set up in a kind of vlog style setup for interviews. So typically what we would do is we would have the speaker, be that a presenter or someone that we're actually interviewing more organically. We'd have them set up kind of in the middle, just over here, sat in a chair with a table. And we like to shoot it into the corner because it kind of gives you leading lines and it just works a little bit better for the depth of the composition. Typically we'd also want to have quite a bit of space between where the speaker is going to be and the back of the room. And that means you can really play with your depth of field, so it's got a nice kind of like blurred out background and you're really focusing in on the speaker. So we'll just pull this a bit further forward, almost as far as you can afford to do it. We've still got house lights on at the moment, and we've also got a little bit of natural light coming through the windows there. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to block out the natural light and then get the house lights off and build it up from that.
So the first thing to consider after kind of turning all the lights off and everything else like that is your framing. So we always like to start with our A-cam and get the framing right, get the depth of field right of what you want your interview to kind of look like, and then you can build the lighting setup from there. It's nothing special, but she's not bad.
So this is framed up to be centrally framed with the speaker basically, so that means they're going to be sat in the middle of the composition and they're going to be looking down the camera when they're speaking. We've also got a second camera here, so this is our A-cam and this is our B-cam. So that needs to be on the side opposite to where the key light's going to be, because when you're lighting someone you always want them to be shadow side towards the camera. It just looks a little bit more dramatic. I suppose if you see that mixture of shadow and light, it definitely gives more depth to the person, the way that they look. It just brings a little bit more of that cinematic or dramatic edge to it, I guess. We're going to start off with a basic setup. So all we're going to have in this setup is one main light, is a key light, and then in the background we're going to have a couple of small lights that'll be our practical lights, which just add a little bit of interest in the background. We've got our key light here. This is the Aperture 300D. We use this a lot, particularly in smaller setups. Here's the light, and then on front of it we've got a modifier, which is a light dome with a single layer of diffusion there. So this is like a really nice, strong key light. It's going to be most of the light coming into the shot. Then behind we have a little practical light there, another one there, and that just kind of also, as well as bringing a bit more interest into the shot, it kind of brings the temperature up in the background.
At this point, essentially, you've got everything set up. So your key light, your practical lights, and it's all about fine tweaking at the moment. So things like framing. We're not focusing on audio in this video. We might do a separate video for that in the future. But what we really want to express is just this depth of field behind the subject. So that's where the practicals come in. By lighting the background, it helps to give like a nice warm depth to the room. By having a really bright key light, it allows you to lower your aperture as low as it'll go, which will create like a really nice blurry background, and again just really accentuate that depth of field in wherever it is that you're doing an interview. A setup like this is perfect for freelancers or someone that's trying to travel quite light, so maybe if you're flying to somewhere and you can't take as much kit with you.
So that's it for setup 1. We're going to do the second setup now. We're just going to bring in a few extra pieces of kit for that, not go all out, we're just bringing a few things where we'll show you how a bit of negative fill or an extra light or two here and there can kind of really push it a bit further.
So the next thing that we're going to add is just a bit of negative fill and diffusion. What this does essentially is you're using a black material to absorb light and then a white material to either bounce it or disperse it. So having a black material or a black flag like this on the shadow side is just going to make the shadow side a bit darker, stop the light from bouncing off the wall, and then adding diffusion to the key light is going to help sort of disperse the light and make it just a lot softer and make that roll off less harsh on the face. Doesn't look too pretty, but it does the job. So
Right, yeah, so I've set this one up as a hair light, and I'm going to just slightly change the colour balance. So it was on 56 or 5,600K for daylight. Just going to push it down to about 3,600, which essentially is trying to copy the temperature that these lights, the practical lights in the back, are throwing out. It'll kind of give a little bit of highlight to the back of his head, which really helps to give distance between the speaker in the foreground and everything else going on in the background. So that's set. So this is going to be what's the presenter's shadow side of the face, so kind of against the V-cam. Just going to have this here as a fill light. Reason being, it kind of just softens those dramatic shadows that you see on the face and just makes it a little bit more of a kind of balanced amount of light across their face. Okay, so yeah, altogether on this second setup then, we have firstly added some diffusion onto the key light, so that's really softened it out. We've also got a fill light over here, just bringing a little bit more light onto this side of my face. As well as that, we've got some negative fill on this side. So whilst there's a fill light there to balance the amount of light that's on my face, there's also the negative fill here, which is kind of controlling what direction that's coming from. So this is stopping too much light bouncing off the ceiling coming down from the top. And then we've also got this hair light here, which, as I said before, is essentially just separating me a little bit more from the background by adding this highlight that should be just around my head there. The kind of main thing here is, with the increased complexity, we're just increasing the amount of control we've got. As we bring lights in and as we bring negative fill in, we're just increasing that amount of control and direction that light's coming from. So for the third setup, we're going to add even more elements into that to push it that little bit further. So yeah, I think I'm going to swap out at least one of the practicals with one of these aperture MTs, which are great little extra lights to put in the background. You know, they don't throw out a lot of light, but you can completely change the shape of your practicals or that kind of background of the set. Change up the colours as well as the colour temperature. So I think I'm going to make this one kind of blue, put it somewhere.
So a Manto favourite that we bring to a lot of sets and interviews is a spotlight. We use this all the time to simulate sunlight through windows or to add like a splash of light onto a background, especially if you're shooting like a very corporate interview, something where it's just like a plain white room. It just helps to add like that sort of splash of daylight onto a wall, which just gives it a bit more interest, which is why she only needs a little light. So normally our cable management is marginally better than what it is currently, but for the sake of doing this very quick setup, I'm not worrying too much about that.
Okay, so yeah, we've got the blue gel on here so that we can up the power of the blue practicals that we've now got in shot. And then I think we're going to go with using this as a backlight. I was kind of thinking about it as a kicker to top up the amount of power we're getting out of the hairlight there on the back of the subject, but instead I think it's quite nice to backlight this side of the background, and then we've got a bit of a contrast to blue and like warmer colours on that side, which should look pretty good. This is a good way to get asbestos. These are just shears, so these are like really cheap layers of diffusion that you can buy. It's basically just someone's bath curtain. But yeah, it does the job really well. It's only really thin as well. So the further back we go with the light and the more diffusion we put onto it, the more throw it has over the subject's face, or whatever it is that you light. The muslin will just give us a little bit more temperature, I think. It's quite a bit of a ragtag set we've got here, but essentially we've got 2 layers of diffusion here, another layer of diffusion here with a slightly different colour temperature to it, and then the original layer of diffusion in the light.
Yeah, so we've made all of the big changes that we sort of set out to do so. We've made the key light into a huge soft source of light. We've added a bunch of different things to the back of the set as well. So now it's just about fine tuning and tweaking those things that'll make sort of like the big differences. And I think when you're doing an interview setup like this,
whoa.
Oh my God. I really
Try not to kill the subject.
Relatively professional production studio. the idea of bringing in as many different lights and controlling the light as much as possible just allows you to control the tone of voice that you're trying to get. So if you're doing a really cinematic interview, or you're shooting something maybe for like a dramatic documentary or something like that, having a really bright light side and a really dark shadow side kind of emphasizes the drama within the interview, I'd say. But if you're doing something maybe a bit more professional or corporate, or you just want something that's kind of light and airy, but you don't have loads of daylight to play with, bringing in all these different effects allows you to just kind of control that tone of voice quite well. So whilst the first setup looks quite dark compared to the third setup, it means that we still could make it dark if we wanted to, but having a lighter, brighter setup is something that I think we're trying to aim for this one. So we decided to swap out the 300D for our 600D just so we can give ourselves some more power on the key light. It was going through so many sheets of diffusion that obviously dims the light ever so slightly, and we were at 100% and we just wanted a little bit more. So this is where having a more powerful light can really come in handy in situations like this. Okay, so this is setup number 3. So for this one, we went all out. We took as much of our kit as we possibly could, and we fine tweaked it to kind of just how we want it. So I'll start sort of front, and then we'll work our way to the back. So starting off with our key light, what we did is we did 3 layers, or added 3 layers of diffusion to it. We did a muslin at the back and 2 extra layers of shears in the front. What this does is it slightly warms for the skin tone of your subject, and it also creates a huge soft source of light as well. Because of having so much diffusion to it, we decided that we needed more power, so we changed to our 600D just so we could get a brighter, more powerful light into our subject. So moving round to here, we added the spotlight on the 120D, which is casting a little light just in that back corner of the room, which again just adds a little bit more interest to the set itself. So we talked about our neg panel before, bringing in sort of the more shadow side of the face. We brought that in a little bit closer to just accentuate those shadows. We also added some neg to the table because the table is white and was reflecting the key light onto my chin. So adding that just sort of mutes that. We also added some neg to the ceiling. The ceiling is bright white and bounces light all over the place, and it's a problem that we've had for, well, ever since we moved into the place, but adding just a little bit of black cloth just helps it ever so slightly. When it comes to sound as well, it also helps the sound from bouncing around the room as well. So, yeah. So in the first setup, we had 2 initial practicals, which are just basic lamps that you'd have in your home, but we decided that we'd only keep one of them, and instead we'd add our own sort of practicals. So we added these aperture tube lights to different colour temperatures and different brightnesses to sort of fake as practical lights. The reason why we'd add our own lights is just so that you can fully control it and you can balance it to the set, and it never becomes too overpowering that way. So we've got one in there, one underneath here, and then we kept the lamp on as well. The other light that we added is a backlight with a blue gel on it to kind of give this wall a really cool colour, so that the colour contrast would go from blue on this side to a slightly warmer tone on this side. The last thing that we added is one of our favourite toys, which is the fog machine, which doesn't work, which now works. What this does is it basically just diffuses the light even further in the background and just makes everything a whole lot softer, and just adds some nice like texture to the whole set overall. I think that's everything.
Okay, so that's 3 different lighting setups, all with a different amount of kit, different amount of complexity. This is probably a way that, you know, we would build up our interview setups. You know, obviously you're always going to start with your key light, but I think after that point, different people are bringing different lights, different amounts of fill, diffusion, etc., to change the way that their setups look. There's no one right way of doing this. I think the key thing is to just try lots of variations, and then from doing it more and more, you'll figure out which lights you prefer, which different additions you prefer to get the kind of look that you want out of your interview setups.
It's also important to remember that every interview that you go to is probably going to be different. It's going to be totally different environments, totally different rooms. The sun's never going to stay in the same place either. So yeah, every situation's different and you've got to just adapt to it.
Yeah, like always make sure that you're considering the client and the brief above all else. You know, don't go for super high drama with extreme shadows on one side of the face if it's basically just going to be a corporate explainer style video. It needs to just have more of an appropriate look to the brief.
So we hope that you maybe learned something from these 3 setups. Let us know in the comments which one you preferred. Let us know if there's something that we missed that you might have done differently, and we'll see you next time.